You are listening to the Food for Thought podcast, where each episode is presented as an invitation for dialogue and self-reflection. I am your host, the real MaCoya. Thanks for tuning in. Bon appetit. What's up, everyone? Thanks so much for tuning in. On the menu, the waiting room. Let's get into it. So when it comes to waiting, telling someone to wait, those are fighting words right there, okay? You know, we don't like to wait. We live in a microwave society where they just continue to expand the technology to where we don't have to wait. You know, what used to take hours now takes minutes, and what used to take minutes now takes seconds. But when it comes to the reality of waiting in the real world, and especially in the spiritual world, that just does not work that way. We find ourselves waiting. And not only are we waiting, we may find ourselves waiting for an extended period of time. And not only that, we don't know when the waiting will be over. And that can make it very difficult to wait well. But we must be able to wait well if we want to see the promises of God come to fruition in our lives. So let's get into it. What does waiting well look like? Waiting well looks like us being focused on what our current assignment is. It is us adopting the truth of what the waiting is doing in us, going to the word, not allowing our circumstances to cause us to reject or rebel against God, but to trust that his waiting is purposeful and that he is with us all along. Although he may be silent or still, we can trust that even in that, he is working. And we need to trust that God is good and that his plans are good. We always go back to that truth because waiting can cause us to feel that God is not good and that his plans are not good, that we're actually waiting because other people's matters are more important than our own, or that God has just fallen asleep on the job and just does not care about us. Neither of those are true, but those can be battles that we have to face when it comes to waiting and waiting well. We find ourselves feeling overlooked. We find ourselves feeling abandoned, and we wonder, God, where are you and why am I waiting? And that type of disposition can cause us to go either one or two directions. It can either cause us to take matters into our own hands and just figure it out and do it on our own, or it can cause us to just give up completely. And the reality is that neither are the way that we should go. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. The Bible tells us that. Anyone that has been waiting on God or hoping for something, you can attest to this. It is very difficult to keep hoping for something when God just is not moving. When you find yourself year in and year out still waiting, no prospects in sight, no, not even an inkling that things are going to change or that God is on the horizon. Change is on the horizon. We begin to feel discouraged. We begin to feel like, okay, what's the point? So we give up. We take the approach of growing up as kids where we didn't ask our parents for certain things because we felt like they were going to say no anyways. And so we do the same with God. But the thing is that don't speak for the Lord. If God has not answered you, keep asking until he does. And then we go to the flip side where we pull the Sarah and Abraham. We take matters into our own hands. Trust me, I get it. You're tired of waiting. You don't know what God is going to do. You don't know where he's at. And so you say, you know what? I'm just going to do it myself. We pull a Saul and we say, hey, the people were pressuring me and you weren't here. And so I just had to do it. And that's what we do. We say, Lord, you weren't here. I was tired of waiting. So I just went ahead and did it. I went ahead and took the job. I went ahead and quit my job. I went ahead and took the proposal. And the thing is that you knew that you weren't supposed to do it. You knew that wasn't God's plan for you, but you were just tired. And you just say, you know what? Maybe God needs my help. Maybe this is the way that God is going to do it. You may not have been trying to rebel, but you probably were leaning on your own understanding. And so you say, you know what? I think this is what I need to do. Or you could have just been like, you know what? I'm tired of rebelling. I'm tired of waiting. So I'm just going to do my own thing and I'll have to deal with the consequences later. And we don't want to allow ourselves to fall into those categories because the enemy wants us to miss out on the fullness of God's promises. He wants us to give up on God. He wants us to believe the worst. He has the same trick and he's been doing the same thing for ages. He does not want us to believe in the goodness of God. The same trick that he used on Eve is what he uses on us now. But we have to take every lie and every negative thought captive that does not line up with the word, and we have to make it obedient to the word. So in those moments where waiting wants to tell us that God has forgotten about us, we must tell ourselves, God sees me. He collects every one of my tears in his bottle. He has a plan and a hope for me. When the lies of waiting want us to feel like God doesn't care, we keep praying and we keep asking because God tells us to do so. He is building character in us. He's deepening our faith, and he's also creating and cultivating an environment for us to see his glory. Look at Joseph's situation. Joseph went from being the favored child of his family, grew up well off and well-to-do, and was sold into slavery, then was thrown in prison, all to end up in the palace. But he had to trust God in the waiting. He did not want to give in to the lies that, man, you know what? This is just going to be my reality. He had to believe that there was a plan for everything that he was going through. And the reality is there was a plan. And the same is true for us. If God has us in a waiting season, if we're in the waiting room, there is a plan for that waiting. Habakkuk tells us that though the vision may tarry, wait for it, for it shall surely come and it will not tarry. Now, when I originally was thinking about this, it just sounded so crazy to me. It sounded contradictory because if the vision doesn't tarry, then why is the vision tarrying? And then you realize, although it may appear that God is running late or the vision is running late, it's going to arrive right on time. Like the old, Christian cliche, God may not come when you want him to, but he's always on time, because we are in time and our understanding is limited to time. But when we can trust that the God that is outside of time has a plan and it's all going to unfold right on time, we can trust and believe the best, even in the midst of a painful waiting season. So I hope that this has encouraged you to wait well while you're waiting on God and to know that he has a plan and that he's in the waiting room with you. That's all for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Food for Thought. Please leave your comments below and be sure to subscribe.